Ripple has just applied for a US banking charter recently, and this isn't a move just about regulation. It's about building the next financial superpower right alongside Anchorage Digital, who's the first mover in this space to get regulated as a federally chartered bank here in the US not too long ago in 2021. So let's break it down in this video. What does this actually mean for Ripple? What's their long-term vision? How is this going to affect your investments? And how should you be positioning yourself to take full advantage? So let's break it down. What is a banking charter? What does that even mean? What does it allow you to do if Ripple actually gets this across the line? A federal bank charter is one of the most powerful licenses in finance. It allows a company to custody assets, facilitate payments, and offer regulated financial products just like a traditional bank. But in crypto, it's extremely rare. The only other one that exists is Anchorage Digital, who got that back in 2021 and is the only current player that's actually fully regulated under the OCC with the banking charter. So how does this apply to Ripple's long-term vision? I talked about this a while back, so let's back up a little bit. I did think that Ripple would eventually apply for this, but I knew it was going to be the absolute last thing that they did. And the reason for that is once you are a regulated bank and you have oversight from the OCC, you move slow. We've worked with Anchorage at Digital Wealth Partners to provide institutional custody for our clients and wealth management services. And anytime we ask them for stuff, it just takes a while. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of compliance. There's oversight. They move slow. And so for Ripple to gain the market share that they have and be able to establish themselves as the player in the space in the capacity that they wanted to, becoming a bank would have just slowed them down. And so this is kind of the last brick in that foundation for them to set themselves up for the grand scale of what they want to accomplish. So let's break that down. In the last 24 months, what did they actually put together? Well, originally, they were just a payment provider, right? They had RippleNet. They could facilitate payments. They had an ISO compliant software that allowed people to send messaging back and forth. And, if they wanted to settle through XRP, obviously they've got ODL as a product that they've, had alongside that to be able to fund some of their business. But in the last 24 months, they've really doubled down on this institutional quality and setting the standard in the industry for how this is going to operate in the future. The first thing that they did was they acquired Metaco. So that's institutional custody. And this was actually a big land grab. There was a ton of other banks that Metaco had already been integrated into for back-end institutional custody. And it meets the qualification for the standards here in the US for them to other people to leverage that back-end software and be a qualified custodian because it uses HSMs or hardware security modules, which meets the standards here in the US, which are FIPS compliance. So with Metaco there, that's one component. That's custody. Got to have that to be able to be the leader in the space for institutional services if you're providing payments and blockchain infrastructure to basically provide the rails for the back end of the financial system that's going to be moving forward. In addition to that, this year, they also made an acquisition of Hidden Road for $1.25 billion. They are a prime broker and liquidity provider. They facilitate margin. They also settle transactions and they're a wirehouse. A lot of things that are involved there. It's a pretty big deal when they made that acquisition. And this actually gives them leverage for the banking charter because there's never been a non-bank that's owned a prime brokerage. So this was kind of just, again, the next layer in the evolution of Ripple alongside what they also launched late last year, which was RLUSD, their stablecoin. So in competition with USDC and Tether and a few other stablecoins that are currently in the market, this is an institutional quality stablecoin. They met with the Treasury here in the US to make sure that they're abiding by and setting the highest standards when it comes to what a stable coin in the US would look like. And then obviously they made the acquisition of Standard Custody at the end of 23, which is an institutional custodian and has the license to operate there in New York as well. So the federally chartered banking license, along with the BIT license that they have there in the New York jurisdiction for Standard Custody, allows them to provide treasury services and a lot of other things that I think are going to be really, really interesting for that company over the long term. With the charter, Ripple would unify this under a federally regulated infrastructure bank, which is a big, big deal. So let's talk about Anchorage for a second. Take a step back and look at what they've already been able to accomplish and kind of how they cut the path before Ripple got here. They got their banking charter back in 2021. They're focused primarily on security and compliant custody and settlement services for institutional investors. So this is people that are running funds, wealth managers like ourselves, They have a complete side of their business that's for RIAs, or registered investment advisors, that provide institutional custody and other services for their clients. Their clients include banks, again, asset managers, and then even the US government holds a portion of their digital assets there. And BlackRock also moved all of their assets over to Anchorage here recently. And so they built a reputation kind of as the Fort Knox for digital assets. Their hardware security modules and the way that they've structured their proprietary blockchain and security is second to none. They have regulatory grade staking, governance, and trading infrastructure all in-house there, and it seamlessly integrates with TradFi rails, making them the go-to solution currently in the market when somebody is looking to custody a large amount of digital assets. And that's why, again, BlackRock has moved their assets into Anchorage, and why we also use them at Digital Wealth Partners. So if that's interesting to you, you're holding your assets on a cold wallet, you want to get them into something that's a bit more secure because they've appreciated substantially, please reach out to digitalwealthpartners.net and use the contact us form there. And you can, speak with an advisor and also work with us to custody your assets, have insurance, segregated bankruptcy, remote accounts, a lot of stuff I've talked about in other videos when it comes to institutional custody. So let's get into the difference. We've got Ripple that's looking to be this mega giant, the back end rails and the infrastructure for financial institutions. Then you've got Anchorage that is just mainly becoming the Fort Knox when it comes to actual custody of clients' assets. So Ripple still doesn't have the banking charter. They just applied for it. It is going to take some time, whereas Anchorage is already the incumbent. It's in place. They're good to go. But Ripple has a full stack infrastructure for payments and all of these other additional services, including custody, liquidity services, and margin through Hidden Road, and then also the stablecoin that they've put out with RLUSD. Whereas Anchorage, again, primarily just custody, staking, trading access for funds and institutions that are looking to manage their capital in that capacity or on behalf of other people and pay out returns. And so that kind of breaks it down to the next piece here, which is their clients, right? Like Ripple is institution facing, enterprise facing. They're going to be issuing real world assets. They've got a tokenization engine, and they're looking to really develop this asset class at scale globally, whereas Anchorage is another bank partnered with asset managers and governments, and they become kind of the Fort Knox of the industry. So Ripple wants to become the global financial operating system, while Anchorage wants to be the trusted vault that institutions leverage when they're holding digital assets. So what does this mean for Ripple over the long term? Like, what are they trying to accomplish? Well, I think they're trying to become the Amazon of financial products and the infrastructure for the back end when it comes to institutional products and services for enterprises, banks, governments, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, all of the like. When they want to tokenize something or bring something on chain, you work with Ripple because they are setting the standard when it comes to these services in the industry. So with the banking charter, Ripple can offer all the core functions of a financial institution across custody, payments, liquidity, and the tokenization. Anchorage has just proven it's possible to actually get this across the line and get the charter, but Ripple wants to scale it globally and integrate it vertically with all of their partners. If successful, Ripple becomes a one-stop shop for institutions entering digital asset world with XRP as the native bridge asset, which, I have a strong affiliation in that area. So again, nothing here is financial advice, only for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always make sure you speak with your financial advisor before making any investment decisions, and you can work with Digital Wealth Partners if you need one of those. So just to kind of cap this off, this isn't really a rivalry between Ripple and Anchorage, even though they both are going to probably end up with this charter. One is very, I don't want to say consumer facing, but more fund asset manager focused, whereas the other is definitely more enterprise adoption and for institutions. So this isn't a rivalry. It's a reshaping of the global financial system. Ripple and Anchorage are building the rails that only one may own the highway. And I think you know who that's going to be, with it being Ripple. So let me know what you think in the comments below. How'd you like this video? If you wouldn't mind, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It really does help the channel, and we'll see you guys on the next one.